ladies and gentlemen, it's me. With Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom released a couple of months ago, many people noticed that Zelda has taken up residence in Link's old house in Hateno Village. While many players assume that Link must have gifted the house to Zelda, a number of Zelda Link shippers and others have pointed out details that suggest that the two are now living together. And I'm here to ruin their day. For full disclosure though, I don't hate the Zelda Link ship. I think that there is a romantic element to Link and Zelda's relationship in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and I think they're kind of adorable together. I just think that there's a lot of evidence that says that they're not living together right now. So why do I think this? Well, let's start right here. In Breath of the Wild, Link can keep many of his belongings, including a large arsenal of weapons and armor, in his house. In Tears of the Kingdom, while there are a few of Link's belongings in the house, namely this painting and this hairband, there is nothing there that he would need, or even necessarily want to keep. In fact, nothing in the house suggests that Link actually lives there. If he were living in Zelda's house, he would have some of his belongings in there, including some gear. If nothing else, he would surely have at least some clothing and one weapon in the house just in case. But there's not. If Link is living in the house, we have to first accept that Zelda threw out all of Link's stuff, which seems out of character for her. It would also be out of character for Link to not have any weapons around, as his primary motive still seems to be to protect Zelda. So if none of Link's stuff is in Zelda's house, then surely he's moved out and he's living somewhere else at the moment, and he's only left behind the stuff that Zelda wanted to keep. On to point number 2. The house is now referred to as Zelda's house by NPCs like the cleaning maid. Link may not be as familiar to the locals as Zelda, but seeing as how the house was previously referred to as Link's house, if they were living together, surely it would be called Link and Zelda's house. If this isn't enough for you, consider that in Zelda's diary, Zelda refers to the house as my house. If Zelda was sharing the house with Link, wouldn't she refer to it as our house instead of my house? But she doesn't. It seems that it really is just her house. But as if this wasn't already more than enough proof, several years have passed between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, during which Link and Zelda have been working together closely. Link is still Zelda's knight and feels the need to protect her. Evidence of this can be found in Zelda's diary, where she states that Link stays by her side everywhere she goes. If these two are living together in Hateno, then anyone in the village who knows Zelda would at least recognize Link, because they'd always be together. But nobody does. Not the gate guards, not the shopkeepers, not even the kids that visit Zelda's house regularly after school. There is only one person in the village who recognizes Link, and that's Pyrrha's old assistant, and he recognizes you for reasons other than knowing that you live in town. The mayor doesn't recognize Link. The housekeeper, who is the mayor's wife and visits Zelda's house to clean, doesn't recognize Link. If nobody recognizes Link, how can he possibly be staying in Zelda's house? But just you wait, there's still more. Which makes me really wonder why anyone thinks these two are living together. There is only one bedroom in the house, and there is only one pillow on the bed. One pillow would imply one person sleeping there. And I thought that would be the end of the story if the shippers weren't so desperate at this point. However, a number of people have decided that the detail is inconclusive, since most beds in Tears of the Kingdom have only one pillow, and the game devs must have just reused an old asset. While it is true that most of the beds in the game have one pillow, Zelda's house is a place that Breath of the Wild players have an attachment to. The game devs know that, and spent more time on the details of the house, as is evident from just looking around in it. So this isn't a detail that would just go unnoticed. This has got to be intentional. There's one more major thing to cover here. Zelda has a secret study and research room in a well that she constructed on the property. The nasty shippers have misinterpreted this detail to mean that Zelda wanted a place where she could be away from Link in order to study and, as we learn upon investigating, plan surprises for him. And I'm here to tell you that the well actually disproves that the two are living together. Okay, so I know that sounds counterintuitive, so hear me out. Zelda's private study is called, in-game, Zelda's secret well, implying that she was trying to keep it hidden. The character of Link is controlled by the player, and players in sandbox games are curious. It follows fairly logically that Link is also a curious individual. Zelda's well wouldn't have been constructed prior to her moving into the house. That is a terrible hiding spot if she is trying to hide something from Link, and it would 100% be discovered by Link if he was living there. The purpose of the well is to have a private place away from the local kids who visit regularly, as well as perhaps the housekeeper. We know that Zelda in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is an intelligent gal, so if she's trying to hide something from a curious person who lives with her, there's close to no chance that she would hide it directly on their property. On top of this, even if the well really was just for privacy, Link isn't the kind of guy who would distract her from her work. Link is, as we know, very quiet and would, if anything, be helpful in her studies. The idea that Zelda is trying to find a place away from Link to study doesn't make any sense. Then why do people think that Zelda and Link are living together, I don't hear you ask? Now there are a few points that people do have, so I'm going to address a couple of the major ones so that they aren't the only thing in the comments. First of all, plenty of people have pointed out that Link can sleep in the bed in Zelda's house, and say that Link can only sleep in beds that he owns or has paid to stay at. There are two problems with this argument. First of all, at this point in the story, Zelda is gone. As Link likely gifted the house to Zelda, and Zelda has no heir, he would probably be considered the default owner of the house at this time in history, so sleeping in the bed would be no problem. Second, we know that in Tears of the Kingdom, there are a small handful of beds that Link can sleep in. It seems like Link can sleep in any bed that he has permission to borrow. There are also a couple ideas that people have about why the NPCs in Hateno Village don't recognize Link, and I want a quick talk about those. First of all, I've seen some people saying that people just wouldn't notice Link when Zelda is around, as Zelda is talkative and important while Link is pretty quiet. But the local kids that regularly visit the house don't recognize Link at all, despite clearly having a great affection for Zelda. One kid even provides a first-hand account of the last time that Zelda was leaving the house. And it's clear from his account that Link was not there to go with her. Link must have met her somewhere later down the road. Not even Zelda's daily housekeeper, who visits every day, knows who Link is. I don't know about you, but I can't see that as a coincidence. Another argument I've heard is that people don't recognize Link because developers decided that the only NPCs that would recognize Link from Breath of the Wild would be NPCs that had some kind of plot relevance, either by a quest or a side quest. But there are minor NPCs who know who Link is throughout Hyrule, and there are pretty significant NPCs within Hateno Village that don't recognize Link at all. This honestly feels like people are coming up with excuses to clear a gap in continuity at this point, and the evidence so far heavily suggests that Link hasn't been living in Hateno Village. A third explanation that is marginally more satisfying is that after the encounter with Ganondorf, Link had a bit of a transformation and looks different, so maybe people that previously might have recognized him wouldn't. But that doesn't hold up well. While he had some changes by the time he returns to the village in-game, his face and his frame, the two things we mainly use to identify people, haven't changed in any way. He still looks like Link, but almost nobody recognizes him. Another thing that people bring up is where else would Link stay? And I have to admit, I don't know where Link would stay for sure. There is a cabin in Fort Hateno where Link can sleep, but it's a little far away and there's evidence to suggest that it was inhabited by someone other than Link prior to the start of the game. It is also true that a fairly large number of the Kakariko village do recognize Link. Not all of them, but far more than any of the other nearby towns, and so it's very possible that when Link and Zelda aren't traveling and repairing Hyrule, Link stays at the end in Kakariko. My personal favorite answer, though, is that Link has gone full Aragorn and is living out in the woods in the regions around the town, serving as an informal watchman to make sure that nothing dangerous approaches Zelda or the townsfolk. There's not a lot of evidence for or against it, I just think it's cool. I'd love to hear some other theories, though, about where Link might have been down in the comments. So you could argue that there is some evidence to suggest that Link and Zelda are living together, but there is far more evidence that they are not. It appears that after the end of Breath of the Wild, with Hyrule Castle still ruined and unpopulated, Link moved out and gave his house to Zelda, as she would have no residence to call her own. And that's why in Tears of the Kingdom, the house is Zelda's. Link has been available nearby to accompany Zelda when she leaves the town to rebuild Hyrule at large, but is not living in the same house. And that's all I've got for today.